for those of you that might not have been to one of these before, this is where we report out on the progress that we're making on the key value streams and indeed on improvement work across the Trust under the umbrella of, come in guys, welcome, under the umbrella of the Leeds Improvement Method, which of course, as you know, is our method, our management method, how we focus on continuous improvement, engaging teams and focusing on improving services for patients and also driving out greater quality, efficiency and performance. So today, delighted to say we've got 3 teams reporting out. We've got Value Stream 2 doing the 60-day report out, Value Stream 4 doing the 30-day report out, and Cardiology giving us an update on their work on PLICs. So, kicking off, can I invite Value Stream 2 to come up? And if you could introduce yourselves, that would be fantastic. I'm looking forward to hearing about your 60-day report out.
Hello, my name is Eileen and I am the sister on J43 and the process owner for the RPIW on improving the EDAM process. We chose this as an RPIW as we have a long way for EDAMs from when patients are told they can go home to when they receive their EDAMs and actually go home. During the RPIW, we looked at a nurse-led authorisation of an EDAM commenced in theatre and flowing along with the patient to the ward. We also looked at how we could improve the medication element of the EDAM for those that require medication at the point of discharge. Over the last 60 days, progress has been slow, but we are building an educating tool that will underline the fundamental education of a nurse-led discharge. We've also made some small changes to how we add meds onto the EDAM when they go home. And my colleagues will talk about this.
Hello, my name is Claire and I'm an RPIW team member. Since the last report out, we've identified that due to there no longer being winter pressures, the types of patient we have on the ward are slightly different. So we no longer have as many longer stay patients, and therefore task 1 that was on the newspaper, which was ordering of one-stop dispensing, is not something that we could currently trial properly at this time, but it makes the pre-pack and some of the other items on the newspaper more important.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. My name is Charlie. I'm RPIW member and team leader for ALS for pharmacy. So the work I've done so far is relating to the pre-pack process, which is a process whereby there's a criteria set in place for patients who only need a couple of simple, straightforward medicines that can be discharged onto the EDAM by a nurse from a set stock list on the ward cupboard. The work we've done so far with that is there's been a review of the range and quantity of medicines in that cupboard and how much is used per week. What we found is there was some therapeutic duplication of items and there was overstocking. So by that review, what we've managed to do is get all of the stock that's needed by moving a couple of items, reducing stock levels from 2 cupboards into 1 cupboard, and we've managed to also rearrange the cupboard so that the items that are used most frequently are at the bottom and easier to hand, and the items used less frequently are further up in the cupboard to make small efficiencies there. We have informed the nursing staff and the ward staff of this at Puddles to make sure that staff around know that they no longer have dihydrocodeine, so doctors don't use codeine, and lactulose gone, so use more Mobicol, things like that. We have updated the posters. Claire's updated the posters, so again there's that communication with the ward teams of what is available and what can be used on those EDAMs. And we found that actually since we first implemented the pre-pack process, there's kind of been a general slight change in how they're used away from that process, and some confusion as staff members move and new people come into the pharmacy team, into the ward team. We haven't been particularly good at informing them how that process works. So we're going back and looking at that. So the next steps are absolutely to kind of redress that creep in the process, maintain the look of the cupboard, keep an eye on the stock that's used, how frequently and whether it's still appropriate. And then we're looking at how this action with the pre-packs links to one of the other items on the newspaper, which is kind of the next level up, where there are bags of a selection of medicines that are chosen for a patient depending on the type of surgery they've had. So again, that's rationalising stock and quantities, and it's a single dispensing process for 3 or 4 medicines rather than one dispensing process for 3 or 4 medicines. We have found, I think it's we have found that maintaining the momentum that we felt during that week has been difficult, quite challenging. We've all gone back to our day jobs, whereas during that week, the week was set aside to build momentum. So that has been a challenge. But we've met this week. We have a plan to meet next week. We've met today, and we hope that having 3 or 4 meetings in succession will kind of give us that drive again. We've made some changes and some improvements, so we've then got that kind of morale boost as well that we can do these things, and we continue to do them really. So we're thinking about now how we all work together, a bit more collaboration with the different processes available for discharging patients, whether it's a nurse writing an EDAN, whether it's using pre-packs, or whether it's an EDAN that needs to go to pharmacy, and how we triage those patients and allocate the process to the patient appropriately so it's as safe as possible. I think that's
great. Excellent. Now, because we've got the 3 report outs, we probably have a little bit more time than normal, so if it's okay with you guys, thank you very much for the report out. First of all, we should acknowledge that, so well done. But while it was fresh and listening intently to what you were describing, I just thought if there are any contributions, questions, comments, maybe from colleagues who might be involved in this as well, or anything else that that anyone wanted to ask, we take that opportunity.
I think we talked in one of our meetings about narrowing it down as well. So I think when we first started, we were looking at all the patients on the ward possibly.
Yeah.
And I think so that we can see some actual results, we're going to narrow it down to a specific group of patients.
Yeah.
And maybe focus more on getting together to discuss these patients before we make any definitive decisions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
the plan.
Yeah.
Forward.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Good.
I think it's important to point out, I think we're still struggling with the flow of information from theatre. I think that remains a challenge for us, and I think our clinician engagement with eMeds and MedChart in terms of getting that information right first is still a challenge. But we're hopeful, because I think if we can get that flow right, it makes these guys' work and jobs that they do downstream on the ward they feel much more prepared when that information is done at the time of the operation. We've still got a way to go with that in terms of consultant login and all consultants signing up to that's where we're going to start with EDAMS, is the right information in theatre.
Yeah.
So that's a big challenge for us going forward, I think, for the next for the next few months really.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Penny. Any other comments or questions?
One thing I'd probably say is I think something that's quite interesting Claire was saying around whether the nature of the patients that's actually on the ward has changed, and then therefore some of what's agreed during the week might not necessarily apply in a concrete way a few weeks later. So it's just something there about how we kind of acknowledge that, and that doesn't necessarily mean that what was agreed shouldn't happen. It just means that it's quite challenging to do it right now because the patients where you would apply this new process aren't there. So it's just something I'm thinking about that, and maybe not necessarily doing it, but it might be possible to do it in these 120 days, but maybe making sure that's part somewhere so we can think about before the kind of next number of pressures and the nature of the patients changing again, which is quite likely.
Okay. I thought something you said, Charlie, about the kind of, because the progress that was evidenced when you did the rapid process improvement week, and we saw some of those big gains in terms of the reduction in time that it took, and that point about sustaining that sort of momentum and the challenge of that. I think that's a common experience when you've done an RPIW. We're finding this with other RPIWs. So don't think you need to sort of feel anxious about that. I think the challenge is just keeping at it as you're describing, and turning that into the standard work that then, you know, starts to spread and everyone gets engaged in. But really good to hear, and look forward to your next one will be your 90 day, won't it? So look forward to that. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, so apologies for the standing room only. There are one or two seats dotted around if anyone feels like squeezing in. We're now up to value stream 4.
It's not the 7th of April.
No, it's not.
We've got to change the date.
And we've got the ophthalmology outpatients report out, and what? How many days? 30 days. Okay. So, do you want to introduce yourselves, guys?
Hi, my name's Kath Walton. I'm senior assistant at the eye clinic and I'm process owner. We're looking at the first nurse review, and the setting up of the clinic environment took far longer than the time we had available, and it was completed in a cycle that did not focus on when the rooms were actually needed for us to see our patients. We see the first nurse review is done first, and that was the last room that we actually set up. So we've made some subtle changes to the task allocation for the nursing staff to reduce waste, like walking time for nurses, the wait time for the patients and the consultants. And we've set up and prepared the vision rooms first.
Right, my name's Anne. I'm a clinical support worker in the eye clinic. And what we've started to do in the morning is we ensure that the keys are collected by 8 AM prompt, ready to start the clinic. One person opens all the boxes in all the 18 rooms. These boxes have the drops and bits of kit that the doctors are going to need. So if these are at the beginning, they're ready to start on time. We have streamlined our setting up system. We do some of the prep work the night before. Each member of staff is given a list of rooms to prepare, so that all rooms are ready at the same time to ensure clinic starts on time. By doing this, we have reduced waste within our setting up times. We have also reduced staff walking distance, and we have reduced our setting up times from 27 minutes to 20 minutes per morning.
I'm Simon Colburn, one of the eye consultants involved in the RPIW. Do we have any slides after this? Because I have a feeling this might be our presentation from the first one. Yeah, this is our old presentation. So if you flick through to some of the pictures we've got, we'll just give some context as to what I'll be talking about. If you go back, I don't think you can go back again. If you don't mind, could you go back? Okay, so we'll forget about that then. Basically, my experience of this whole process and before we started with this improvement week was that I often can be sat in clinic at the start waiting for patients to come through the first nurse review and come through to the clinician's room, and sometimes that can be up to 40 minutes before I'm actually seeing our first patient. And as the clinic goes on, patients' flow reduces and they're all concentrated towards the end of the clinic, leading to long waiting time for the patients and the clinic finishing an hour late. And through this week we've identified ways to improve that patient flow and speed up things. For example, we've just talked about reducing that clinic setup time and doing it in a different way so that the patients come through from the start quickly and that momentum continues through clinic. So we've implemented other changes other than just the setup. I've engaged with all the clinicians, and we're now hopefully all writing all the tests that the patients need in the clinic notes, so that when they come to the first review, the nursing staff know which tests they need to do, and that's been sustained since our RPIW week. So patients are coming through to the clinic room with all the tests they need, and they're not having to go back through the flow, which is adding interruptions and reducing the patient flow. Interruptions is one of the biggest things that we noted with the data that was collected beforehand. It was up to 85% interruptions in all of the first nurse review. So each time they saw a patient, out of all of those patients they saw, 85% of those interactions were interrupted, and that was usually through things like clinicians asking for equipment, asking for documents that had run out in the room, and other things like the nursing staff having to come to the clinician's room to ask about whether they should put dilation drops in if they checked the pressure and that was high, because it might be a contraindication to bring the drops in. So we've introduced Kanban cards, and that was one of the pictures there, some laminated restocking sheets basically that go in the document trays. When we get down to the bottom, we'll use those to restock, and the idea is to restock in flow through clinic so that we're having to leave our room less and interrupt the nursing staff whilst they see their patients. And I've also got some Kanbans for other bits of equipment drops and things like that that I can put on my clinic notes pile. So if and when the nursing staff have time, they'll restock me during clinic so I don't have to leave the room. And that's having an impact as well. Other things, I've made some laminated instruction sheets in the first nurse review clinic room, so if they have a high pressure, they can look at that list of instructions, and it reduces the need for them to come out of that room, reducing their wasted walking distance and time in clinic to ask clinicians the question, should they do, for example, dilating drops, so that will hopefully reduce it. We were using waiting times on the whiteboards outside the clinician rooms to let patients know how long they might have to wait, and again that may reduce interruptions to the nursing staff as a patient has to ask them how long they might have to wait. And over the last 30 days since our RPIW, I've not actually needed to use that whiteboard to write the waiting times on in most of my clinics, because the patients have been coming through quite quickly. I've noticed that I've started on time and I've finished on time for the last month. And so we are putting all that effort into my clinic at the moment, but we're going to roll that out to other clinics and see if we can make a change to every clinician in the outpatients and impact the patient waiting times.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. That's great. Thanks very much. Kath and Simon, some interesting stuff in there. I'm sure some things that colleagues will maybe want to ask about or comment on. Same opportunity in terms of what you've just heard. Two of you, please come and sit here, because there's so many of you. Any views, comments, questions, Karen?
I think it's just fair to recognise that while this has really been fantastic work and has been really embedded and I think has worked really well, particularly because the working relationship between the clinician and the nursing staff, and I think it's for me to just recognise that support's been really great. We recognise still that we've got a long way to go with nurse staffing in this department. However, we also have some light at the end of the tunnel after a very successful recruitment. Week before last, and have appointed 4 new nurses, 50% of who have already got ophthalmology experience. So we are really confident that having set it up with one clinician, the rollout should happen quite quickly once we've got that bit in. So it's just a recognition of everybody's hard work really, and the big changes, and the positive feel when you go into the department is noticed as well.
Good, excellent. That's good feedback, Karen. Any other points, James?
Just to say, Helen Gilbert told me about the initial improvement at the time. She was really impressed, wasn't by it. Otherwise, it's fantastic to hear that after a month you're sustaining that, and your clinics are starting and finishing on time, because that'll make such a difference to the experience for those patients and, of course, you guys working in it. So well done.
A lot in there, Simon, about kind of visual management. You talked a lot about using very simple but effective. Have you found that has helped in the whole process of?
Yeah, it is early days, but I think it definitely will.
You can spot that card across the clinic.
Yeah.
So it's easy to think, oh yeah, I'll go and get it in the moment.
And go on.
Well, we're in the process of copying all those Kanban cards for the 18 clinic rooms that we've got, and distributing them, so that hasn't happened yet, and we'll hopefully be able to show the progress with that in the next report.
And as far as the overall, the metrics you set yourselves during the RPIW and subsequent to that, in terms of your progress against those, you feeling?
So we've mainly got the metrics about the setup time. We've reduced that setup time by 30%, and we've sustained that over the last 8 days despite staffing pressures. So that's good, and if we get more staff, then we could maybe make that even better as we go forward.
Yeah, excellent. Any other questions, comments? No? Great, well done, thank you. Right, we're now moving on to cardiology, and we're going to have Andy and Dave talking to us about patient level data and maximising the value of that. Important agenda for us, this, in terms of making sure that we've got a really good line of sight on our costs and how we can make sure we get best value out of all of the resources that we use. So looking forward to hearing this. Over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Dave Tunstall. I'm a senior costing accountant, and this is Andy Hogarth, clinical consultant. Good afternoon. Consultant cardiologist and clinical lead, I should say. And we'd like to share with you today, hopefully. Is it going to go?
Yeah.
Got it. And we'd like to share with you today an example of what we've achieved in cardiology using patient-level data. This is roughly the overview, a little bit about what we found, which I'll lead into, and then I'll hand over to Andy, who will take you through the measures. Is it going to stay? Right. Just in case anybody doesn't know, this is PLIX. PLIX is our patient-level information and costing system. It's not just a finance system, it pulls information and data from a whole host of sources around the trust. Galaxy, JAC, Cardiobase, CRIS, and whilst it does that, it traces the resources that the patient used from the moment that they come into the hospital right the way through to their discharge. As a consequence, we can build up a picture of what that patient's bill looks like. And be able to see their profitability at the end. So we'll have their income as well from tariff, non-tariff, and we can sort of get a really granular detail down to things like pathology tests of what they've used during the course of their stay. How we've used that patient level data in cardiology is we took an approach where we decided to keep it simple. We took one HRG to start with, something that was routine, high volume, not particularly complex. As a result of it being routine and complex, it was believed to be, thank you. It was believed to be profitable. There was no reason as to why it shouldn't be profitable against the tariff that we received for it. And also importantly, we focused on elective activity. And in that way, we felt that there was a greater control over the costs that were taking place within that procedure. This works so much better in practice than screen.
Just click on the PowerPoint cancel.
So at a very high level, when we started to look at this particular procedure, we went in and what we found was against each of the procedure codes that were being logged through the Cardiobase system, that actually that fed into the HRG. Each one of those was on average making a loss. And at 6 months worth of the year, through 6 months worth of the year, you can see that on average we're making roughly £1,800 loss per case. At 126 so far, so if you double that up, it's quite a significant value that we were losing through the course of the year. The beauty of the PLIX system is that not only can we cut this data at a high level to be able to see that as an overall summary, is that with all that granularity that sits underneath it, we can actually get down and start looking at the detail that sits within the patient bill and understand what is driving that cost. At that point, this is where I hand over to.
This is where I've been asked to contribute to this from a clinical point of view. And where I came to this is my background as a cardiac electrophysiologist, and for those of you who are familiar with that, you're probably aware that's the sort of dark art of interventional cardiology. We spend lots of time in the cath lab poking around the heart with catheters and spending a lot of money on trying to solve arrhythmia problems. From my point of view, just to take a few steps back, for years I've been trying to make sure that we were coding these procedures correctly, because they're difficult procedures for the coders to correctly code. Often colleagues don't really understand what we've done, and decoders have to interpret all of that witchcraft as well. And we tried to put processes in place to make that correct, because if you don't put the right data in, the wrong data comes out. But that was the final piece of jigsaw I never had. How did I know, if you did make a mistake with that coding, what the end result of that was at financial level? And of course, it's not just about money. David's a couple of times used terminology like profitability and making sure we're billing correctly. This data is also used for benchmarking across the centres. We're the third largest EP centre in the country. And we were seeing, when we were benchmarked against other centres, that we were perceived as being expensive. And myself and my colleagues found this very hard to believe, because we're not. We're very cheap. We're very low maintenance. But of course, you often believe that, but you can't show people. And when I was given the opportunity to work with David and his team, this was the final piece of that jigsaw. Because very quickly, and we've not shown this because it takes too long, you can graphically show at a high level, there's loads of this is in the red, and it should be in the green, and this doesn't make sense, it should be in the middle somewhere. So you can drill down to those outliers, and very rapidly we could show the coding team, sit down and say, look, that was miscoded, and look what happened. And that, when you graphically visualize that with the team, that becomes real. And that was the final process in engaging that coding team to get them to work with us to make the IT infrastructure we changed to get the coding correct. And then we could go back and show all that red's now green, how it should be. And that was a really neat way of putting that final piece of the jigsaw together, as I said, with the coding that I literally spent years trying to fix. So from that point of view, from the clinical point, it was really useful. The other thing is, when David alluded to there, you can drill down to a patient level. When you open up that patient, there's stuff a clinician can see like that. That, with all the best one in the world, the financial team won't see. Stuff like the case took 6 hours, and that case shouldn't take 6 hours, so either the case is wrong or the time is wrong. And we established a few other things that often timestamps were allocated where there was no end time on the cardiac database system, so an average case time was allocated. And then I learned how expensive time is, which sounds ridiculous, but from a clinical point of view, you really focus in then on the resource which is the most expensive, which is our staff and the infrastructure within which we work. So then you start thinking, well, if we can do things a bit faster, all of that red becomes green, and that really helped me as well from a clinical point of view. So we established a few things that made easy wins, if you like, and I would encourage others, if you want to work with the Plex team, go for the things that are easy wins. Go for the straightforward elective cases of which you can split down to simple and complex, which there are very disparate tariffs. Look at the outliers and drill into it and find out what's wrong. Coding, making sure the time allocated was correct, and we very quickly made the difference. Over to you again, or what have we got next?
The outcome of that, really, just to show how that's fed right the way through. This has come from the coding team. So after meeting with Andy and the cardiology team, they put in place a review of the activity that was taking place. They looked at October, they looked at what had gone through regular coding, they re-reviewed it, and you can see from here that there were 7 instances out of 28 to 25% of the activity was being incorrectly coded at that stage. By correcting that at that point, actually recouped an additional nearly £13,000 worth of income in that month.
So these are procedures which were complex procedures being miscoded as simple procedures. And the complexity panel is really quite dense, but we'll go into it. But the mistakes that were being made were repeated and repeated again, and we very quickly eradicated them. And actually, the coders faced when they came back and saw that all of that red, white, green, which is comes out as a financial recoup, if you like, but that's not, as I said, just about the money. It's about being able to then plan budget-wise, financial flows, plan activity, and benchmark against peers better.
I think you get to my next couple of slides.
Yeah, I'll just keep talking. Then we kind of realised that with the clinical engagement and our the business manager, service manager, and David and his team, we had this getting the right people around the table, we could start looking at other things. And clinicians, healthcare workers are innovative. Technologies come along, people want to do new things. Often, as well as improving patient outcomes and making things safer, better, but to save money, to do things, to save money for the NHS. And you can really show that very quickly with this system. One of the things we've done there is a quick example is loop recorders, which are little impactful ECG recorders go under the skin. The technology evolved in the last couple of years for them being a minor surgical procedure that had to be done in the cath labs to being a relatively straightforward local anaesthetic, inject the thing under the skin, which doesn't have to be done in the cath labs, thereby saving on that resource. We trained one of our physiologists to do it, so we're not having a consultant or a registrar perform the procedure, and we've reduced the staff involved in that procedure by a significant amount. We kept the mix of staff. Great, everyone's going to save money, isn't it? This shows it. This shows it very quickly that you've then gone from this procedure, which was about losing a few £100 every time we did it, to being profitable, but that means it's costing less. It's costing less to the NHS, and this system really helps with that. So if you, business cases, things where you have to demonstrate an improvement in outcomes, safety, efficacy, but also resource utilisation and improving the financial side of it, Plix really helps us. And also, as we've alluded to, I, as a clinician, understand a lot more about how all this works now. This is an hour a month. This isn't a huge amount of clinical time I'm devoting to this. And I hope that David will confirm that actually working together, we're all understanding what's going on better, and it really helps our CSU as we move forward. So the future is batteries in remote control.
Here we go. So we've done a lot of this work in the last financial year. So hopefully 2017 we're starting from a really good benchmark point where we can monitor the changes that have been put in place. Using the Plix information and Andy's insight, we can go in, we can review. This is just one example of one HRG. We did pick it up across a number of other HRGs, and the training which Andy's mentioned that's gone out to the coders should have an impact across a lot of the various income streams within the cardiology specialty. So what we'd like to do is continue to monitor the coding, the activity and the income to make sure that that is still going in the way that it should be, and have the ability to readdress that before it has any opportunity to go too far away from the ideal which we would like to have set up. What we've learned is that we really need to collaborate more closely with the coding team. Although as a costing member of the costing team, worked really closely with Andy and the cardiology team, the business managers, physiologists, a whole host of people. What we're probably finding is we're now at a point where we really need coding in the room as well. We need them to help sort of shed some light on the decisions that are taking place and the reasons behind some of the coding. So hopefully we can bring them in future in the meetings and gain some insight from them. And then lastly, this is really down to Andy, as is alluded to.
Yeah, I was just to say that as well as this, it's not all about the money, it's about being able to demonstrate that we're providing a service which is cost effective and as good as, or if not better than our peers across the country. And also within our own group, again, you can look at individual operators, and as long as we're putting the data in correctly, you can see that if Dr. A is taking twice as long as Dr. B, we'll try and find out why. And that's where we're heading with the next phase of this work.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Really, really interesting and well done on, I think, some terrific work getting really under the skin of the coding, the procedures, and the teamwork between clinical, finance, coding. That's so crucial. I suspect there'll be lots of colleagues thinking about this in terms of their own areas. So, any questions, comments for Dave and Andy in terms of what you've heard? Yeah.
Hiya. My name's Leon, I'm a business analyst. I just wondered, have you done any sort of scaling work? So you've obviously looked at a really small aspect of arbitrarily chosen that you would expect profitable. Have you done any scaling of what the potential impact for income of the trust might be if this was rolled out?
There have been pockets of work done in other CSUs and pilot sites that have followed similar lines to this. We don't have a figure as to what they're looking at. There's pieces of work around comorbidities that we've looked at and whether they're being picked up on a regular basis as the patient comes through the hospital. So the short answer to your question is we haven't scaled that up, and we don't have a trust-wide perspective of what that potential income gap could be based on what we may or may not be coding correctly. But it would be a really interesting thing.
It's a great question, Leon. I think that's something we should be thinking about. I'm not sure. Are there any finance colleagues, or Yvette, did you want to comment?
Sorry, well, it was just to say that I don't want people to think that the only benefits from this are the finance, because certainly for us, when we look at the coding of our patients, the people who pay us the money are running out of money. So keeping the coding going is a good thing to do, but not because we're necessarily going to get more money, but because then when we look at our case mix, we know about the complexity of the care that we're providing, of the complexity of the patients, so that when we look at our mortality indicators, we can see that those very complex patients who survive do make, give us really good results in other ways as well, and particularly the science of data mining and the research that we can do with all the data that we've got within PPM and our data warehouse, which is growing, is also going to be a great research source.
I couldn't agree more. I think the kind of put rubbish in, you get rubbish out. This was one way of demonstrating that really does make a big difference financially and for other reasons. And if you don't, so many times you see data's plenty, that's nothing like how I understand data, and that's why, because at that low level it's been put in wrong. It's often clinical coding, and getting that right so you know what you're doing, you can compare and match it to peer groups and look at your outcomes properly is really clinically important.
Ollie?
It may be the way you presented it, but are you working outside the Virginia Mason work processes that we've done for other value streams? Is this a slightly different project?
Just instinctively Virginia Mason.
I think a word of explanation from me, Ollie, on that. I think you want to use report out as an opportunity for an umbrella for all improvement work. So we've had some report outs from colleagues that haven't necessarily been identified as a formal value stream, but are working on improvement work that we see as consistent and in line with the Leeds improvement method. So it's an opportunity for us to share good practice, and it's an opportunity to
kind of rolls on to the next question. So resource-wise, has it just been Batman and Robin going at it together, or have you? Who else have you called on to help you, and what sort of resource have you needed? Because we've looked at trying to get decent data out of the trust, and it's been very, very difficult.
Well, I equally found it difficult to find when I was doing this work in isolation and coding years ago, for many years. That final piece of where you pull everything together financially was just impossible. There was no one person you could talk to. They got it. So David's team were, I think from the inception of the sort of Plix model, Greg Reynolds, who was our own CD, was involved in that.
He was right from the very beginning.
So we've always had that kind of link with the Plix team, and my involvement came on the back of Greg's time, so perhaps that's how it evolved. In terms of manpower, as your team, we meet once a month with myself and Tracy Bernard, who's our service manager, and we're increasingly building the team, the code, that relationship with coders, so there's no kind of formal manpower type stuff.
I think it's probably worth saying as well, we're a relatively small costing team. We do produce this information on a monthly basis. It is available to all the clinical management teams, the business managers. We do support it where we can. We've got a number of pilot sites not long ago where we're working with various teams around the Trust, Children's in particular. I saw Stuart Murdoch a little bit earlier. We've worked with him again for about the same length of time we've worked with cardiology. But all that information is there and available, and as we kind of roll out a little bit more, and the unit accountants and finance team outside of our own costing team, the rest of finance become more au fait and get to use this information, they can support clinical management teams along with exactly the same pieces of work that we've shown here. So there's nothing to stop that work taking place. And again, we're happy to support it and get it sort of going and running, but there's nothing to stop people accessing that information and the finance teams themselves helping to support that process.
It's a link through the intranet, isn't it? You can play around with it. Look, click. It's nice to click on your name and see how profitable you are. But then you kind of drill into it and think, well, that doesn't look right. and then the ball starts rolling.
Yeah.
So I manage the costing team, and I just wanted to do a plug for Plix really. That this is a really rich data source that everyone here has access to. Clearly, we've just heard how one individual area has made use of it, and as David said, we're working with a whole host of pilot sites out there. It's there to use. It's hopefully and we're trying to talk about the money side of things in a far more interesting way to you, because it's talking about money in terms of the patients that you treat and resources that you use in treating them. So it's not just a finance system, it's very much geared towards helping us to improve the efficiencies of how we treat patients.
Great. Really good point. Really good point. And important to know it's there and we can use this, and the way that you've shown the way of what you can achieve and what you can get into, I think is fantastic in terms of the opportunity it presents us with. Any other questions? Gina?
I'd just like to say that this has really been driven by Andy and the service manager really. You know, we haven't had to push this or you know, say, you know, put a focus on the finance or anything. It's really been driven about, you know, the clinicians wanting to understand their service and work collaboratively to, you know, with really good results. But you know, Andy's been absolutely a star in all of this.
Definitely Batman.
Excellent, excellent.
I was going to say, I think that's the key as well, isn't it? So it's about taking ownership of the data. So it's you're the people who know whether this data is right or wrong. The coding team there will put the information in, finance team there will bill for it, but actually the data is your data, and there's only you that know whether it's right or wrong. So
Yeah. Great. Anything else? Well, can I thank you both? Really good. I think that's going to spark a lot of interest and great to share it as well in the context of the improvement work we're doing. So thank you very much. Well done. Thank you. So that concludes Report Out. Now there is another one next Friday. I think we've got an RPIW underway next week, Chris, haven't we? So another Report Out. We might need to find a bigger room.
It's at the LGI.
Cabery Lecture Room.
Cabery, yeah. Okay, we're in Cabery at the LGI. So please do come along. Tell your friends. It is important to us in terms of sharing best practice, sharing the progress that's been made across the whole organisation, in both the value streams but also in things like the work that you just heard from cardiology on PLIX, and where there is improvement work that you think we need to share and we need to be publicising and we need to be getting people to know about that, then make sure you get in contact with the KPO team and we'll get it on a future report out. Okay, thanks very much.